Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Today's interview is a little different. This is about business class flights. It's about luxury hotels. It's about building up frequent flyer points using your business spending to do it. Mark Dawes is the Chief Executive Officer of RewardPay and joins me in the studio this morning. Mark, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me.
Righto, give me the elevator pitch.
Okay, the elevator pitch on RewardPay is that what we know is that there are literally hundreds of thousands of small businesses that, when faced with having to make a payment to whatever supplier for whatever goods, typically want to be able to use a credit card. And because of the merchant fee being quite expensive for the supplier, if you look at a typical merchant fee that's, say, 2%, you've got a $100,000 invoice, that's a $2,000 charge that's literally going to come off the bottom line in terms of the profitability for that supplier. And what we worked out was that, sure, there's no value on the merchant side, but on the card member side, there's loads of value. And the card member's really excited to be able to use their credit card because they have the opportunity to get up to 55 days interest-free credit, which they can use to fund their business. They've also got the ability to earn credit card reward points. And often for these businesses, when they're earning their credit card reward points, the business is helping them to earn them, but they're redeeming those points for personal benefit.
Yep.
Yeah. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do.
So just explain that. So I've got an Amex card.
Yep.
How does RewardPay fit into the Amex card?
Yeah, so we are a merchant of American Express.
Right.
And so what happens is that customer comes to us and we've got a portal that we built, and the customer will, first of all, go through the registration process, enter their card into our digital wallet, and then they'll go about, setting up the various payees that they want to make a payment to. And so you'll set up a payee to either make a payment to a bank account or to a BPay biller code. And so what happens is that they come on, and let's just say that you've got an invoice that's for, $50,000. You then go into our platform, you process that payment, you hit pay, and essentially what then happens is that you're making a payment to RewardPay because we're the merchant. We receive the funds next business day from American Express, and then at about 11:30 that next business day, we push those funds out to whatever the nominated bank account is or to whatever BPay biller code.
So what's the advantage to me in doing that, in going through RewardPay, as opposed to just paying with my Amex?
Well, a lot of the time with B2B payments, they just won't accept a credit card. So there's no option for you to use a credit card to be able to do that. And with RewardPay, what we're doing is putting the power back in the cardholder's hands, right? So, and it's what we refer to as a borrower-initiated payment, so a push payment, as opposed to a pull payment where the merchant's, in control of the payment and they're saying, right, I'll process this payment now, you give me your card details, and I'll pull the money from your card. So what's happening under our model is that the card member's under control, and it's the card member who's deciding what they want to pay and when they want to pay. And by virtue of being in control, they're also levied with the cost of being able to process that payment as well, right? And in return for that cost, i.e. the RewardPay fee, they're getting their benefits, as I mentioned earlier. So they're getting the up to 55 days interest-free credit. They're getting their membership reward points in the case of American Express. And they can also have the opportunity to elect to earn Qantas points as well, in addition to the credit card points.
Okay. How does RewardPay make money?
So we essentially clip the ticket between American Express and what our customers pay. So, American Express love what we do because we're a natural extension of sort of growing their network, right, in a non-traditional way. We're taking them to places that they can't get to on their own. So by virtue of that, they've said, okay, well, we're actually happy to give you a wholesale rate to help us to get that coverage. And, because you've got that wholesale rate, we leave a little bit of money, only a little bit of money, for RewardPay to then go on to, make our living.
Okay. So who's using you at the moment?
So typically our customers are small business customers, small to medium enterprises. So the people that would use RewardPay would typically be owner-operated businesses where you might have anywhere from 1 to, say, 3 owners in the business.
Sound like Fear and Greed here, Keep it going. Keep it going.
May well be. I'll show you how to sign up after the show. So, it's typically sort of 1 to 3 owners. They, really try to put through whatever business spend they can so that they can accumulate as many points as they can.
Yep.
And some businesses choose to use those points for business travel as their staff fly around the country or do whatever they do. Some will elect to, buy a bottle of wine to give to an employee that's done a good job. Others will just get into this mode of saying, you know what, I love taking the family to Italy every year and there's 10 of us. So, I need to pump through whatever I can so that I can actually fly the 10 of us, business class return to Italy at Christmas.
I'm liking it more and more. What about stuff like government payments, tax payments, BAS? that type of thing.
Yeah. So the good thing with RewardPay is that we can pay pretty much any business expense that you could imagine. So if you think about the ubiquitous expenses that business have, paying your BAS, right, once a quarter, is absolutely something that people pay through RewardPay. If you think about utilities, everyone's got, if you're in manufacturing, you've got, gas and electricity bills that you've got to pay. You've got business insurances that you have to pay. Any business expense that you might have, you can pretty much pump through RewardPay.
Mark, stay with me. We'll be back in a moment. My guest this morning is Mark Dawes, CEO of RewardPay. If Fear and Greed signs up to RewardPay, for example, is the primary benefit the loyalty factor?
I think it comes down to the industry. So, if you look at an industry like construction where you have progress payments, for that sort of business, the cash flow benefit is really crucial to their business. And you've got to remember that, on some cards, you're getting up to 55 days. And some of these businesses are really savvy at lining up the card cycle cut to when they're actually going to put an invoice on the card. So as I say, in construction, that's really crucial. But for all businesses, yes, the loyalty component, is an absolutely huge hook, for, as I say, all businesses. And what we also find is that the loyalty value is of such a magnitude that not only are people electing to, or are not electing, but they're getting their credit card reward points, but they're also electing to earn Qantas points on top, right? So, we have the ability for you to obviously pay the fee to process the transaction, get your credit card reward points. But then on top of that, you can say, well, yes, I'd like to earn Qantas points with that. And we actually give the customers a choice as to how many points they want to earn. So you can earn, say, a quarter of a point per dollar, all the way through to 2 points per dollar.
And is that a relationship that you or Amex have with Qantas?
Yeah, so we've got a direct relationship with Qantas, which we've had for several years now. Mm-hmm. And it's something that a large population of our customers really enjoy just because of the value that they can derive by earning those points.
Okay. I want to go on about the points in a moment, but there's just something that you mentioned a moment ago I want to come back to. So in a sense, one of the big benefits, it's a cash flow benefit to small business because cash flow seems to be the biggest issue of all.
Yeah, well, it's interest-free cash flow, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you're not going to an overdraft?
Yeah, that's right.
You're just working it out. Okay, so what sort of reward? I mean, you mentioned Qantas, but in the intro there was a bunch of different awards there. What sort of rewards are people taking up?
Yeah, you know what? I can answer that question in so many different ways.
Okay, I'll ask it again. What sort of rewards should I take up? Personally.
Well, what we know is that the redemption for business travel, particularly for business class travel and first class travel from a, getting great value for your points is a really good way to redeem.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, $1 is roughly worth 1 point, right? Whether it be for Qantas or for your credit card. Mm-hmm. And what we know is that it costs about 350,000 points for a return trip to Europe, for argument's sake. Now, if you were to come and do that on the RewardPay platform, the cost of acquiring that 350,000 points is going to be about $6,500. And as I say, that will get you a return flight to Europe. Now, if you were to go and pay for that trip, that's about $12,000 to $15,000 of cash if you're buying that. So, immediately you can see that you kind of, got a trip for half the cost.
Yeah. Okay. And is it mostly travel that people redeem it for?
You know what? We have people that redeem for all sorts of crazy things. In some cases, you can call up your card issuer and they will convert your points into cash. So we've had people that we've known have called up American Express and they've said, look, I'm at the Ferrari dealership and I just want to know how many points I need to convert to get, whatever Ferrari they're looking at. We had a pharmacist who called up American Express and said, look, I'm just doing some renovations at my house. I want to get a pool in the back garden. So, what have I got to convert to pay the guy that's building the pool? So, there's just such a huge range. You can, as I say, redeem for really pretty much anything that's got a cash value. You can redeem for flights. You can redeem for whatever product that may be in whatever particular store for whatever credit card you've got. It's really unlimited in terms of what the redemptions are.
Presumably, Mark, you get a pretty good view of how the SME sector is travelling then because you are seeing what they're doing, where they're spending. How is it travelling? I'm just so moving away kind of from RewardPay.
Yep.
The SME sector itself, how do you think it's travelling?
Well, you're right. Because we are right at the pointy end in terms of people processing big business payments, we can literally see on like an hour-by-hour basis, and maybe that's a bit extreme, but certainly on a day-by-day basis, what's happening in the economy with business. And the first thing that we see is just, the downturn in terms of traditional spend. So if I go, to an industry like restaurants, we can see when the volume from restaurants comes off, as I say, literally on a day-by-day or a week-by-week basis. So that's the first indicator that we get. Second indicator that we get is that the card issuers start to cut the limits. So you might have a customer that pumps through $50,000 a week, and he, gets up to 30K, and after 30K, the card starts to decline, and that's because the card issuers, who I think have, got some crystal ball that can see well into the future, decide that their risk is getting too high, and so they, the way to manage that is they cut their card limits. Yeah. Wow. So to answer your question, at the moment, business is actually holding up really well. We're not seeing any of that, despite, a lot of the talk in the press at the moment that the economy is, perhaps a little bit jittery. I've got to say, in terms of B2B, we don't see that. And maybe it is that we don't see it because it's retail that really gets hit, more so.
But it flows through to B2B though, you would think.
Yeah. But at the moment, I can tell you it's looking pretty solid.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you for having me.
That was Mark Dawes, CEO of RewardPay. This is the Fear and Greed business interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.